Ever notice how the world seems to charge you a fee just for the crime of being broke? It's not just a feeling. It's not just bad luck. It's actually, it's a mathematical certainty. You're sitting there, looking at your bank account, wondering how you spent $60 on basically nothing at the grocery store, while the guy in the suburbs just bought a year's supply of the same stuff for half the unit price. Welcome to 2026, the year where efficiency is a luxury. If you have $10,000 in the bank gives you money. They call it interest. But if you have $0, the bank charges you $35 for having $0. It's expensive to be poor, and today I'm going to prove it with the kind of brutal math that makes your stomach turn, because if you don't understand the poverty premium, you're never going to escape the loop. Most people think being poor is just about not having enough, like it's a simple math problem of subtraction, but it's actually a multiplier. There's this old idea from Terry Pratchett about boots. See, a rich man can buy a $50 pair of boots that last 10 years. A poor man can only afford $10 boots that last a season. After 10 years, the poor man has spent $100 on boots and still has wet feet. In 2026, those boots are your car, or your phone, or your health insurance. Think about your car. If you're broke, you're likely driving a 2012 clunker with 180,000 miles on it. You bought it for $3,000 because that's what you had. But because it's old, the alternator blows. That's $400. Then the tires go bald, another $600. Because you can't afford the $1,200 preventative maintenance package the dealership shills, you end up paying $4,000 in repairs over 2 years. Meanwhile, the guy with the $50,000 electric SUV pays zero. Nothing. No gas, no oil changes, and his warranty covers the rest. The math is disgusting. The person with less money literally pays a higher per-mile cost to exist. And that's the trap. You're spending so much money just to stay at zero that you never have the surplus to buy the quality that saves you money in the long run. I'm Heisenbank, and this is Breaking Finance. We don't do hustle culture here. We do reality. Let's look at your kitchen. This is where the math really gets offensive. I want you to imagine two people, Sarah and Dave. Sarah has $500 to spend on groceries for the month. Dave has $50 for the week. Sarah goes to the big box wholesaler. She buys the 48-roll pack of toilet paper for $24. That's 50 cents a roll. Dave goes to the corner store because he doesn't have a car or a membership. He buys a 4-pack for $6. That's $1.50 a roll. Dave is paying 300% more than Sarah for the exact same way to... But it gets worse. Because Sarah bought in bulk, she doesn't have to go back to the store for 3 months. She saves on gas, she saves on time. Dave has to go back every week. Every time he walks into that store, he's tempted by a snack or a drink. He's leaking money. If you calculate the unit price of poverty, you'll find that the lower your income, the higher the cost per ounce for almost everything. Laundry detergent, more expensive in small bottles. Rice, way more expensive in 2-pound bags. In 2026, with these AI-driven dynamic pricing models at grocery chains, it's even worse. If the algorithm sees you're buying single-serve items, it knows you're price insensitive because you're desperate, so it jacks the price up. You're literally being taxed for not being able to afford a $100 membership and a pantry to store bulk goods. Now let's talk about the big one, credit. This is where the system really puts the boot on your neck. If you have an 800 credit score, money is basically free. You want a house? Here's a 5% interest rate. You want a car? 0% financing. But if you're broke, your credit score is probably, struggling. Not because you're a bad person, but because you missed a utility bill 3 years ago when your kid got sick. So let's do the math. You need a $20,000 car to get to work. Person A, the wealthy one, $20,000 at 2% interest over 5 years. Monthly payment, $350. Total interest paid, about $1,000. Person B, that's you, $20,000 at 19% interest. Why? Because you're risky. Monthly payment, $518. Total interest paid, over $11,000. Wait, listen to those numbers again. You are paying $10,000 more for the exact same car. Why? Because you didn't have the money to begin with. The bank is literally looking at you and saying, since you don't have money, we're going to take more of the money you do have to make sure we're safe. And don't even get me started on insurance. If you live in a lower income zip code, your car insurance is higher, even if you're a perfect driver. The algorithm says your neighbors are risky, so you pay for their mistakes. It's a geographical tax on poverty. Look, I know this is heavy. It's depressing to see the numbers laid out like this, but the only way to break the cycle is to see the machine for what it is. I'm trying to give you the blueprint to stop the leakage. If you find this kind of brutal honesty helpful, if you want to actually understand the math instead of just being told to work harder, then hit that subscribe button. We're building a community here of people who are tired of being the yield for someone else's balance sheet. Join us. Let's break the system together. Money is just stored time. We all know that. But being poor steals your time in ways rich people can't even comprehend. Think about the bureaucracy of poverty. If you're wealthy and you have a problem with your taxes, you hire an accountant. They spend their time fixing it. If you're poor, you spend 4 hours on hold with the government. If you have a reliable car, your commute is 20 minutes. If you have to take the bus in a city with optimized 2026 transit routes that are perpetually delayed, your commute is 90 minutes. That's an extra hour and 10 minutes, twice a day. That's over 2 hours a day, 10 hours a week, over 500 hours a year. What could you do with 500 hours? You could learn a new skill. You could start a side business. You could, sleep. But you can't because you're paying that time to the city's broken infrastructure. This is what we call time debt. And because you're exhausted from the commute, your decision-making bandwidth is fried. Which leads us to the psychology of treating yourself. This is the part where the personal finance gurus usually start yelling at you about avocado toast and coffee. They're wrong. Well, they're half wrong. There's a psychological phenomenon called ego depletion. Basically, you only have so much willpower in a day. If you spent all day fighting the time debt, fighting the bank over a $35 overdraft fee, and walking 3 blocks to save 50 cents on milk, your brain is tired. When your brain is tired, it wants a hit of dopamine, fast. So you buy the $8 fast food meal or the $5 energy drink. The gurus say if you just saved that $5, you'd be a millionaire in 40 years. Shut up. The math says that $5 isn't making you a millionaire, but the psychology says you're buying that drink because it's the only thing in your day that you actually controlled. It's a tiny, momentary escape from the crushing weight of the poverty premium. But, and here is the hard part, that dopamine hit is a trap. It's a poverty tax you're levying on yourself. When you add up the little treats that we use to numb the pain of being broke, they often equal the exact amount of money that could have bought the bulk items or paid down the high-interest debt. It's a feedback loop. You're stressed because you're broke, so you spend money to relieve stress, which makes you more broke. In 2026, everything is a subscription. You don't own your software. You don't own your music. In some cars, you don't even own the heated seats feature unless you pay $20 a month. This is the ultimate evolution of making it expensive to be poor. Back in the day, you bought a washing machine. It cost $400. You owned it for 15 years. Now, you might have to use a smart laundromat where you pay per load via an app, or you rent to own an appliance. If you rent to own a $500 fridge, you might pay $15 a week. Sounds cheap, right? But you do that for 2 years? $15 times 104 weeks is $1,560. You paid triple for a fridge. The digital economy is designed to turn ownership into rent. And if you're always renting, you never build equity. You're just a recurring revenue stream for a corporation. If you can't afford the upfront cost to own your life, you will be forced to rent it at a 300% markup. So what's the point? Is it just hopeless? No, but you have to stop playing their game. You have to realize that saving money isn't about depriving yourself, it's about buying your way out of the premium. Every time you pay off a high-interest debt, you're giving yourself a 19% raise. Every time you manage to buy the bulk version of something, you're hitting back against the unit price tax. It starts with the realization that the system is designed to keep you in the small bag lane. There's a quote by James Baldwin that I think about a lot when I look at these spreadsheets. He said, "Anyone who has ever struggled with poverty knows how extremely expensive it is to be poor." He said that decades ago. In 2026, it's just become more high-tech. Your goal isn't just to make more money. Your goal is to lower your cost of existence. Stop the leaks, fight for your time, and for God's sakes, look at the unit price. I'm Heisenbank. See you on the next one.